A boring dinner, a guy who keeps ordering food without asking, and then a stranger pulls up a chair and says 4 words that stop the whole restaurant cold. Get out, she's mine. And the wild part, he wasn't a stranger at all. Maya knew exactly who he was, and that was the problem. Maya's fingers were wrapped tight around her water glass. It was cold and wet in her hand, and honestly, she was bored out of her mind. This date was going nowhere fast. Tyler, that was the guy across from her, had already ordered for her without asking, twice, and he was still talking. About himself, still. Maya was starting to wonder if her brain had made up the boring date thing just to survive. And then it happened. A chair moved, not scraped, not dragged, just moved, like the rules of gravity didn't apply to the hand that pulled it. A man sat down next to Maya, no asking, no explaining, just sat. He was big, not just tall, built like someone who had always been dangerous without needing to prove it. Dark coat, wide shoulders, arms resting on the table like he owned the place. He didn't look around the room. He didn't check the menu. He didn't care about the fancy lights or the expensive wine list. He just looked at Maya. And then slowly, he looked at Tyler. Get out. His voice was calm, almost polite. She's mine. The whole restaurant held its breath. Every single conversation just stopped. Tyler blinked. His brain was clearly buffering. Then he laughed. That fake, shaky laugh people do when they're scared but won't admit it. Okay, cool, funny, but who even are you? The man didn't answer. He just looked at Tyler again, and that was enough. Tyler's smile fell apart. He looked around for backup. Nobody moved. The server near the door froze mid-step. The couple at the next table suddenly found their plates very interesting. Even the bartender stopped polishing his glass. Listen, man, I'm not looking for trouble. This is a misunderstanding. Tyler stood up too fast. His chair scraped loudly. He grabbed his jacket, muttered something about crazy people, and walked away, stiff and embarrassed without even saying goodbye to Maya. Which honestly made her want to laugh. If her heart wasn't pounding so hard, she could feel it in her throat. The moment Tyler disappeared through the door, the restaurant noise slowly came back. Forks clinked. People whispered, but the energy stayed weird. Like everyone had just seen something they weren't supposed to. Maya turned to look at the man beside her, and her heart did something painful and ridiculous, because she knew that face. Sharp features, dark hair neatly cut. A short beard that made him look even more controlled. Brown eyes. Steady, direct, too familiar. Marco Vale, the man she had tried to erase from her life. The man she had left without ever telling him the truth. You don't get to do that. Her voice was steady. Her hands were not. You don't get to decide who sits with me. You don't get to claim me like I'm an object. Marco looked at her. His eyes softened, just a little, just enough to be human. I know. That answer surprised her more than anything. I shouldn't have said it like that, but I meant what I meant. That doesn't make it better. I'm not trying to make it better. I'm trying to stop something worse. Maya's stomach tightened. What are you talking about? Before he could answer, a server appeared, nervous, eyes flicking between them. Is everything all right? Yes. The server looked at Maya, silently asking if that was true. Maya forced a polite smile. She'd been doing that her whole life. Muscle memory. Everything's fine. Would you like anything else? Bring the check for everything. I can pay for my own dinner. I know. It's not about the money. There it was again, like he knew her, like he'd always known her. Maya pushed her chair back and stood up. I'm leaving. He didn't reach for her, didn't block her, didn't touch her. He just watched her with this calm, patient look that somehow felt more dangerous than force. I expected you would. Maya froze. That voice, she had heard it at 6 a.m, in a quiet hallway. She had heard it give calm orders that made grown men move faster. She had heard it in a house that was always full of people, until Marco walked in and everything changed. She hated herself for recognizing him so fast. She walked out of the restaurant without another word. The cold air hit her the second she stepped outside. It was supposed to feel good, clear her head. It didn't. It just felt like her lungs forgot how to work. She walked fast, heels tapping the sidewalk, trying to outrun the ache in her chest. Then she heard the door open behind her. Maya. She stopped. not because she wanted to, but because her own name from his mouth did something to her she still didn't understand. She turned slowly. Marco stood under the warm light spilling from the restaurant onto the sidewalk. He kept his distance, several feet between them, hands in his coat pockets, shoulders relaxed, face unreadable. He didn't look angry, he didn't look smug, he looked focused. I didn't plan to do that. You never plan, you just take control. Marco's jaw tightened slightly at that. I didn't come to control you. Then why did you come? He looked over her face, like he was checking she was okay. Not admiring her, not hunting her, just checking. That alone made her throat tight, because it was familiar. You shouldn't have been there tonight. I can go wherever I want. I know that's why this isn't an order. Then what is it? A beat? It's me admitting I was wrong. Maya stared at him. Those words didn't fit the man she remembered. For years, Marco had been the calm center of every storm, the one person who never flinched, never showed weakness. And now he was standing on a sidewalk, looking at her like she was the only thing in the world he couldn't control. Maya crossed her arms, more to steady herself than to look strong. You don't get to rewrite the past because you suddenly feel like it. I'm not trying to rewrite it. I'm trying to understand what I ignored. Her chest tightened. She looked away for a second. At a passing car, at a street light, anything but his face. You let me leave. Marco was quiet for a moment. I didn't think you would. That's the problem. You never thought about me at all. His eyes narrowed. Not in anger, in pain. I did. Maya shook her head. You noticed what you wanted when it was convenient. The rest of the time, I was invisible. Marco stepped forward. One small step, then stopped, like he'd made himself a promise he wouldn't cross a line. Look at me. Maya's stomach flipped. She hated that her body reacted before her brain could argue. She lifted her eyes to his. I saw you. I just didn't realize what it meant until you were gone. Maya swallowed hard. Do you have any idea how humiliating it is to love someone who never chooses anyone? I didn't choose anyone. That's true. Exactly. And I told myself that made it harmless. Maya looked down at her hands. They were shaking. She made fists, furious at herself. You were always surrounded. Women, parties, smiles, perfume, voices. I cleaned lipstick off glasses more times than I can count. I washed sheets that weren't mine to touch. I heard laughter in rooms I wasn't allowed to enter, and you never once asked how that felt. Marco's expression didn't change, but his eyes darkened. Silence. Tell me. What? Tell me how it felt. Maya blinked. She hadn't expected that. She exhaled slowly. It felt like swallowing something sharp and pretending it was fine. Marco didn't look away, didn't interrupt, didn't defend himself. It felt lonely. A couple walked by, glancing at Marco like they recognized danger. They quickly looked away. Maya barely noticed. Why didn't you say anything? Because you didn't want anything serious with anyone. You made that very clear without ever saying it out loud. And you still stayed. I stayed because I thought, maybe if I was good enough, useful enough, quiet enough, you'd finally see me. Her cheeks burned. Not because it was dramatic, because it was true. Marco's face shifted, like something inside him moved. I was a fool. Don't say that. It's true. Maya looked away, blinking hard. I quit because I couldn't keep doing that to myself. I know. Her head snapped back. You know, Marco nodded once. You left a note. Maya's breath caught. She remembered that note. She'd written it with shaking hands. 3 sentences. Professional, clean, no emotion, no confession. A lie dressed up as dignity. You read it. Yes. And you still let me go. For the first time, the control in Marco's face looked like effort. I thought letting you go was respect. It wasn't respect. It was indifference. Marco flinched. Not physically, but something in his eyes cracked. A black car pulled up to the curb, silent, waiting. The driver didn't get out, of course. You didn't come alone. Marco followed her gaze. Because you're Marco Vale, you can't even leave a restaurant like a normal person. A tiny flicker of humor touched his eyes. Normal is overrated. Maya let out a short laugh despite herself, then immediately hated that she had. Marco watched that tiny sound like it was the most important thing in the room. I'm not here to drag you back. I'm not here to force anything. Then what do you want? A chance to talk to you, with no walls between us. Maya stared at him. You never wanted that before. I didn't understand what I was losing, and now I do. She should leave. She knew that. She had practiced walking away for months, but her body still reacted to him like she hadn't spent 3 months trying to forget him. I'm not going back to that life. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me walk you to your car safely. I can walk. Then I'll walk behind you, far enough that you won't feel trapped, close enough that you won't be alone. Maya looked at him. Hard, she was looking for the manipulation. She didn't find it, and that scared her more than anything. She turned and started walking. Footsteps followed, steady, unhurried, a few paces back, exactly like he promised. They moved through the city like that, the space between them filled with everything they hadn't said. At her car, Maya reached for the door handle and paused. She didn't turn around. You didn't answer my question. Which one? Why now? Why tonight? Silence. Then Marco answered, no speech, no excuses, just the truth, because I saw you smiling at him, and for the first time it felt real that I might never hear your voice in my house again. Maya's hand tightened on the door handle. You don't get to be jealous, I know. She turned slowly. His expression was controlled, but his eyes weren't cold. They were heavy, full of something that looked a lot like regret. I'm not asking you to forgive me tonight. I'm asking you not to disappear before I can make things right. Maya's heart pounded. I don't trust you. You shouldn't, not yet. She blinked. He hadn't tried to push, hadn't argued. But you can trust this. I won't embarrass you again. Not like that. You call that embarrassing? A small flicker touched the corner of his mouth. Almost a smile. The restaurant seems to think so. Maya felt the smallest crack in her anger. She opened her car door. Before getting in, she looked at him one last time. You followed me tonight. You've been watching me. He didn't deny it. That should have scared her, but the way he said it, without pride, without threat, made it feel like a confession, not a claim. I needed to know you were okay, and if I'm not... Marco stepped closer, just one step, then stopped. Careful with the line he wouldn't cross. Then I fix what I broke. Maya's throat tightened. She got into her car and locked the door. Through the window, she watched him stand there, unmoving, like he had nowhere else to be. Her phone buzzed. A friend texting, how's the date? Maya stared at the message, then looked back at Marco. This wasn't a date anymore. This was the past catching up. As she started the engine, she realized something that made her grip the wheel harder. She wasn't just afraid of him hurting her again. She was afraid of believing him. Because if Marco Vale truly wanted her now, why had he let her walk away in the first place? And what exactly had he read in that resignation note that still haunted him? Maya drove home in silence. The city lights blurred past her windshield, red and white streaks melting together as her mind replayed the night on loop. Marco's voice, his eyes, the way he had walked behind her, close enough to protect her, far enough to let her breathe. She hated how easily the past slipped back into her body. She pulled into her parking lot, cut the engine, and just sat there, hand still on the wheel. Her friend texted again. She ignored it. Instead, she closed her eyes. And just like that, she was back there. 3 months earlier, in his house. The Vale house never slept. Even at 6 in the morning, something was always moving. Security shifts changing. Staff whispering through hallways. A whole building running on a different clock from the rest of the world. Maya moved quietly, she always did. Soft shoes, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled up to work. She knew that house better than most people who lived there. She knew which floors creaked, which doors needed a gentle push, which rooms were off limits, not because of rules. Because Marco liked silence there, and she had learned him without meaning to. Marco liked his coffee black, strong, served in the same mug every morning, chipped slightly on the handle. He pretended not to notice details like that. Maya noticed everything. She passed through the living room, straightened a cushion that hadn't moved, adjusted a magazine he'd never read. It wasn't about perfection. It was about keeping the world calm around him. Because Marco Vale carried enough weight already, she reached his office. The door was half open. Light spilled into the hallway. His voice drifted out, low and controlled. "No, that won't work." Maya waited, eyes on the floor, heart doing that familiar thing it always did when she heard him before seeing him. "Yes, move the meeting. Don't argue with me again." A pause. "I don't repeat myself." The call ended. Maya took a breath, then knocked lightly. "Come in." His office was clean, dark wood, quiet. It smelled like coffee and leather. Marco stood near his desk, jacket on. Sleeves rolled just enough to show his forearms. He turned toward her. "Morning." "Good morning. Your coffee's ready." "Thank you." That was it. 2 words. Calm, neutral. And yet her chest tightened every single time. She poured the coffee, handed him the mug. Their fingers brushed for half a second. Maya felt it like a spark. Marco didn't react at all, or maybe he did, and hid it better than she ever could. He took a sip. Perfect. Those words should have meant nothing. They didn't. Maya busied herself wiping a surface that didn't need wiping. She stayed a moment longer than necessary, because leaving meant returning to the world where she felt invisible again. "You have guests coming this afternoon. Several, I know." Her mouth tightened. She didn't ask who they were. She already knew women. There were always women. They came dressed too well, laughed too loud, left behind perfume that stayed in the air long after they were gone. Maya cleaned up after all of them. She learned to recognize different shades of lipstick, different tones of laughter, different ways of pretending something mattered. Marco never brought the same woman twice, and that should have told her everything. "You'll be out late." "Yes." No explanation, no apology. "I'll make sure everything's ready." Marco studied her for a second longer than usual. His gaze lingered, like he was about to say something. Then his phone buzzed. The moment passed. He turned away. Maya watched him leave, same quiet grace as always, and something inside her cracked just a little more. The day passed like all the others. Maya worked. She smiled when spoken to. She avoided looking at the front door when the first guest arrived. By evening, the house had changed. Music, glasses clinking, laughter echoing down the halls. Maya moved around the edges. Invisible, collecting empty glasses, wiping counters, restoring order behind the chaos. She heard Marco's voice sometimes. Calm, controlled, amused, never hers. At one point, she walked past the living room and froze. Marco stood there surrounded by people. A woman pressed close to his side, beautiful, confident, laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting on his arm. Marco didn't pull away. Maya's chest tightened so hard she had to step back. She gripped the hallway wall. And that was the moment she finally understood. Nothing was going to change. Later that night, after everyone left and the house went quiet again, Maya sat alone in her small room at the back of the house. She stared at the wall for a long time. Then she opened her notebook. She didn't write about love. She didn't write about pain. She wrote professionally. Clean, careful, empty. "Mr. Vale, thank you for the opportunity. I am submitting my resignation effective immediately. I wish you well." 3 sentences. No explanation, no emotion. She folded the paper, placed it on his desk. Then she packed her bag. When she walked out of that house that night, she didn't look back. Because she knew if she did, she wouldn't leave. Maya opened her eyes, her apartment, quiet, safe. Small, she stood up, kicked off her shoes and leaned against the counter, heart heavy. She had left because she loved him. She had stayed away because she loved herself. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. She looked at the screen. "I won't come near you again unless you ask me to. But I needed you to know," I read the note. Maya's breath caught. She stared at the screen. He had read it. She sank onto the couch slowly. Anger, relief, sadness, longing. All at once. Another message appeared. "I should have stopped you. I didn't know how." Maya closed her eyes. She pressed the phone to her chest, and for the first time since she'd left, she felt something she hadn't let herself feel before. Hope, and that terrified her. Because if Marco Vale had finally realized what he'd lost, then the hardest part wasn't leaving him. It was deciding whether she was brave enough to let him try again. Now here's something important. because this story isn't just Maya's. Let's talk about what was happening on Marco's side. Marco noticed the silence first. Not the obvious kind, not the silence of a quiet room. The subtle kind, the kind that sneaks into a space after someone essential has left and taken the whole rhythm with them. The house still ran perfectly, the staff still showed up on time, everything worked, and yet something felt off. It took him 2 days to figure out what it was. His coffee was too hot, not burnt, just wrong. He frowned at the mug in his hand, standing alone in the kitchen. The coffee was exactly how he liked it, except it wasn't, because Meyer always waited a moment before handing it to him. Just long enough, just enough to let it cool without losing strength. He stared at the surface of that coffee like it might explain itself. It didn't, he drank it anyway. The resignation note stayed on his desk longer than it should have. 3 sentences. Neat handwriting, no emotion, professional, controlled. Maya's handwriting had always been like that. Clear, precise, no extra flair. It suited her. At first, Marco told himself it was simple. People leave. She wanted something different, a quieter life, a normal one. He respected that. He told himself that. More than once. But respect didn't explain why he kept rereading the note, or why he noticed things that had nothing to do with her, until he realized they had everything to do with her. The house felt louder at night, messier, less controlled. He'd glance toward the hallway in the mornings, half expecting to see her there, sleeves rolled, hair tied back, already halfway through a task. She never appeared. And the space she used to occupy didn't fill itself. Marco had never thought of Meyer as invisible. That was the lie he told himself later, when the guilt finally settled in. At the time, she had simply been there, reliable, calm, efficient. She didn't demand attention, didn't interrupt, didn't hover. She moved through his world like she belonged there, without ever asking for more. And Marco, used to people who took and took loudly, hadn't known how to read someone who asked for nothing. He noticed her absence most in the smallest things, rooms that were tidy but felt unfinished, schedules that ran on time but felt heavier, laughter that echoed too long after parties ended. Women still came and went, that didn't change, but Marco started leaving rooms earlier, cutting nights short, sending guests home with polite indifference. He told himself it was work. It wasn't. One night, weeks later, Marco stood alone in the living room. He picked up a glass from the table, lipstick on the rim. Maya would have noticed. She would have wiped it away before it ever reached the sink. Marco set the glass down harder than necessary. He didn't understand when it had started bothering him, this awareness, this constant sense that something important had slipped past him. He didn't like not understanding things, especially himself. He didn't go looking for her right away. That would have meant admitting something he wasn't ready to name. Instead, he asked questions that didn't sound like questions. She quit. Yes, she left a note. I know. She was very professional. She always was. That night, he opened the desk drawer. Read the note again. 3 sentences, no anger, no accusations, no explanation. The restraint in it unsettled him more than any argument would have. Because restraint meant control, and control meant she had thought this through. It wasn't until he truly saw her again that the truth became impossible to ignore. He noticed her by accident. He was leaving a meeting downtown when his driver slowed at an intersection. There isn't that. Marco looked. Maya stood on the sidewalk, phone to her ear, laughing, actually laughing. Not the polite smile she used at work, not the quiet calm he remembered, a real laugh. Marco's chest tightened. She wore a simple coat, hair loose around her shoulders. She looked lighter, freer, and that's when it hit him. She hadn't just left the job. She had left him. Marco didn't tell the driver to stop. He didn't wave, didn't call her name. He just watched as she finished her call and walked away, blending into the city like she had never belonged to his world at all. That night, Marco couldn't sleep. The decision to watch her wasn't impulsive. It wasn't about control or ownership. It was about understanding. He told his security team carefully, no interference, no contact, just observation. He told himself it was for her safety. That wasn't entirely a lie. But it wasn't the whole truth either. The truth was simpler and far more dangerous. He missed her. Maya's new life was quieter. She worked at a small interior design firm, had a modest apartment, went out with friends on weekends, walked alone sometimes at night, phone in hand, shoulders relaxed. She smiled more. That hurt more than it should have. Marco watched her from far away, without approaching. Without speaking, he noticed the man who picked her up one evening, the way Maya hesitated before getting in the car. The way she sat angled toward the window. Marco felt something sharp then, not rage, jealousy, and that shook him deeply. He had never wanted anyone this way. He had never let himself, because wanting meant being vulnerable. And vulnerability had a cost. The night of the restaurant wasn't planned. He had known she would be there. He had seen her text a friend earlier that day. Boring date tonight. He ignored the tightening in his chest. He told himself he wouldn't interfere. He walked into that restaurant intending only to look. But then he saw her across the room. Saw the way she forced polite smiles, the way her shoulders tensed, the way she nodded when she wasn't listening. He recognized it instantly. That wasn't happiness, that was endurance, and something inside him snapped. Not violently, not dramatically, decisively. He pulled up the chair, he said the words, and the moment they left his mouth, he knew there was no going back. Standing outside after, watching her walk to her car, Marco felt the weight of everything he had ignored finally settle on him. When she told him she had loved him alone, something inside him broke open, because he realized the truth too late. Maya had never wanted his power. She wanted his attention, his presence, his choice, and he had been too busy not choosing anyone to see that refusing to choose was still a choice. As he watched her drive away, Marco Vale stood still, the city moving around him. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel powerful. He felt afraid that even if he wanted her now, even if he was finally ready to choose her, he might have waited too long. And that realization followed him home, settling into the quiet spaces of a house that no longer felt like his own. Maya didn't sleep much that night. She lay on her side, staring at the ceiling, replaying his voice over and over. Not the commanding tone he used in meetings, not the calm authority he carried everywhere, the quieter one. The one that had said, "I was wrong. Of course, now you figure that out." She rolled over, sighed, stared at the dark. Her phone sat on the nightstand, and she told herself she wouldn't check it. She checked it anyway. No new messages. She turned the phone face down and hated the strange mix of relief and disappointment in her chest. The next day moved too slowly. She went to work, answered emails, reviewed fabric samples, laughed at the right moments. Her coworkers noticed nothing. They never did. But every time her phone buzzed, her pulse jumped. By early evening, she was restless. She changed clothes twice, changed back into something simple, dark jeans, a soft sweater, nothing that tried too hard. She wasn't going anywhere, at least that's what she told herself. Her phone buzzed. "If you're willing, I'd like to talk. Somewhere public, somewhere neutral, no pressure." Maya stared at the screen. No pressure. She almost laughed. She typed, erased, typed again. 1 hour, that's it. The reply came almost immediately. "Thank you." That alone unsettled her. The restaurant Marco chose was quiet and understated. No velvet ropes. No crowd watching. Just warm light and soft music that didn't demand attention. Maya arrived first. She sat near the window, hands folded, telling herself she was calm. She wasn't. When Marco walked in, the room didn't freeze this time. But Maya noticed anyway. He spotted her instantly. Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, caution, history. He approached slowly, stopped a respectful distance from the table. "Thank you for coming. You're welcome. Sit." For a moment, neither of them spoke. It was strange sitting across from him like this. No uniforms, no rules about where she belonged. No hierarchy, just two people. "So you wanted to talk?" "Yes. And you promised no pressure." "I did, good, because I'm very good at walking away." A corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. "I've noticed. That wasn't a compliment, I know." They ordered drinks. Maya chose wine, Marco followed her lead. That's new. What? You letting someone else decide? I'm learning. Maya studied him. He looked the same, controlled, powerful, but something in his posture was different, less guarded. Less distant. Why now? And don't give me a polished answer. Marco leaned back slightly, thinking. Because I realized I confused silence with stability. What does that mean? It means I thought if I didn't cause problems, I wasn't causing harm. I didn't see that absence can be just as loud. That took you long enough. I know, and I don't expect that realization to fix anything. Their drinks arrived. Maya took a sip. You embarrassed me. I know. I shouldn't have done that, but I don't regret stopping it. Only how? You always do things backwards. His lips curved slightly. I'm consistent, at least. That earned a reluctant smile from her. For the first time that evening, the tension eased just a little. You followed me. Before the restaurant. How long? Long enough to know you weren't being followed by anyone who shouldn't be. That's not what I asked. I know. Long enough to miss you. The honesty disarmed her completely. I didn't leave to punish you. I know. I left because staying hurt. I know. And I won't stay again if it's the same. It won't be. That's a promise. It's a commitment. There's a difference. Explain. A promise is words. A commitment is behavior. Maya's chest tightened. Then show me. That's why I asked for this hour. Not to convince you. To start proving it. They talked about small things first. Her new job, his schedule, the weather, the city, then bigger things, why she loved organizing spaces, why he preferred order over chaos, why silence felt safe to him, why being unseen had felt unbearable to her. At one point, Maya really laughed, when Marco admitted he once tried to clean the kitchen himself and gave up. After 10 minutes, it's harder than it looks. I told you that. You told me many things. I didn't listen enough. Her smile faded softly. As the hour drew to a close, the air between them felt warmer, closer, charged with something neither of them named. Marco checked his watch, then set it face down on the table. Our hour's almost up. I noticed. I won't ask you to stay longer. I said no pressure. That restraint did something dangerous to her resolve, and if I wanted to. Marco's gaze darkened, not possessive, not hungry, just careful, curious. Then I'd be grateful. But I'd let you decide. Silence, a different kind this time. Walk me to my car. Marco stood immediately, of course. Outside, the air was cool and calm. They walked side by side, close enough to feel his warmth, far enough that she didn't feel trapped. At her car, Maya stopped, turned to face him. This doesn't mean I trust you. I know. It means I'm willing to see if I can. That's enough for now. She hesitated, then asked the question she'd been holding all evening. Why did you really read the note so many times? Marco's gaze didn't waver. Because I was looking for something you didn't write. What? The part where you tell me you're done forever. You never did. Maya's chest tightened painfully. I didn't know if I could mean it. Neither did I. Their eyes locked, the moment stretched. Then Maya opened her car door, looked at him one last time. This is your only chance to do this right. I intend to. She got in, closed the door. As she drove away, she realized something unexpected. For the first time since she'd left, she wasn't replaying the pain. She was imagining the possibility, and that scared her almost as much as it excited her. Maya didn't answer his messages right away, not to punish him, not to make him chase her, but because for the first time in a long while, she wanted to feel what she was feeling without reacting to it. She went to work. She cooked dinner. She folded laundry while a show played in background, but Marco was still there, not like a storm, more like a steady presence she kept circling back to. When she finally picked up her phone that evening, there was only one message from him. I hope your day was kind to you. That was it. No question, no demand. Maya stared at the screen longer than she wanted to admit. Thank you. It was. May I take you to dinner tomorrow? Same rules as before. One condition, no expensive restaurants. Deal. I'll pick you up at 7 if that's okay. She hesitated only a second. It's okay. Marco arrived exactly on time. Maya noticed that right away. She also noticed he wasn't dressed the way he usually was. No sharp tailored coat. No lines meant to intimidate. Just jeans, a black sweater, a jacket that looked normal. When she opened the door, he didn't step inside. Hi. He glanced at her outfit, then quickly looked away like he didn't want to make her uncomfortable. That restraint made her chest tighten. You ready? Yes. They walked to his car together. He opened her door quietly, not dramatically, not possessively, just quietly. You're being strange. In a bad way? In a noticeable way. I'm trying not to ruin this. That honesty startled a laugh out of her. Well, pressure always helps. Good to know. The restaurant was small and warm, tucked between two quiet streets, the kind of place people didn't stumble into by accident. Maya liked it immediately. They ordered casually, shared a plate, talked not about the past, about the present. She told him about a client who insisted on rearranging furniture every 10 minutes. He told her about a meeting that went completely off the rails because someone forgot to mute themselves. You, in a meeting like that? Yes. Power does not protect you from technology. She laughed again, full and easy this time. Marco watched her like the sound mattered. When the food arrived, they fell into a comfortable rhythm. Passing plates, sharing comments, sitting closer than before without acknowledging it. At one point, Maya reached for her glass at the same time he did. Their fingers brushed, both of them stilled. Maya's breath caught. Marco didn't pull away immediately, but he didn't move closer either. You okay? Yes, he waited, then slowly withdrew his hand. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. You deserve choice. The words settled between them, heavy and warm. After dinner they walked, no destination, just movement. The city felt calmer tonight. Maya realized she wasn't tense, wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. She was just with him. Can I ask you something? Depends. He smiled faintly. Fair. Did you ever think I noticed, back then, sometimes, and then something would happen that made me think I was imagining it? I noticed. Her heart stuttered. Then why? Because noticing didn't feel safe. Acknowledging it would have meant wanting something I didn't know how to protect. Maya stopped walking. He stopped too, turning to face her. That doesn't excuse it. I just don't want to lie anymore. You're not very good at this, at honesty. At vulnerability. I'm learning. She exhaled. Her shoulders relaxed. They kept walking. At one point, Maya stumbled slightly on the uneven sidewalk. Marco's hand came out immediately, hovering near her waist, ready to catch her but not touching. I'm fine, I know. He dropped his hand. She didn't mind that habit. At her apartment, neither of them spoke right away. This is where you say good night. Yes. He hesitated. Then may I hug you? The question surprised her. Yes. He stepped forward slowly, arms around her with deliberate care. Warm, steady, protective, without pressure. Maya's hands slid around his back without thinking. She rested her cheek against his chest, and for a moment everything else faded. This was what she had wanted back then, not declarations, not promises, just this. After a few seconds, Marco loosened his hold, but didn't fully let go. Maya tilted her head up, their faces too close to ignore. Marco's eyes asked without words, not yet. He nodded immediately. Okay. No disappointment. No tension, just respect. Maya smiled softly. Thank you. For what? For making this feel safe. His voice dropped. You are. Maya leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to his cheek. Soft, brief, deliberate. Then she stepped back. Good night, Marco. Good night. Maya, she went inside without looking back, but she knew he was still standing there, and for the first time that didn't feel like something from her past. It felt like the beginning of something real. Inside, Maya leaned against the door, heart racing, a smile tugging at her lips. Her phone buzzed. Thank you for trusting me tonight. Don't make me regret it. I won't. Maya closed her eyes. She wanted to believe him, and that was the most dangerous and most hopeful part of all. Maya didn't expect peace to feel so unsettling. She woke up slowly, sunlight creeping through the gap in the curtains, painting the walls soft gold. For a few seconds, she just lay still, waiting for the familiar weight in her chest, the tension, the ache, the constant need to brace for disappointment. It didn't come. Her body felt rested, calm, and that scared her more than any argument ever had, because calm meant safety, and safety meant she was beginning to trust Marco Vale. Again, she spent the morning trying to distract herself, showered, got dressed, made coffee she barely tasted, answered emails, reorganized a shelf that didn't need reorganizing, but her thoughts kept drifting back, to the way he had asked before touching her, to the way he stepped back without complaint, to the way he looked relieved, not frustrated, when she said not yet. That mattered. Her phone buzzed around noon. Would you like to have dinner tonight at my place? No staff, no guests. Just us. Maya exhaled slowly. She knew what his house represented. Power, history, a space where she had once learned to love him quietly while pretending she didn't. Your place is a loaded suggestion. I know, that's why I'm asking, not assuming. Her fingers hovered over the screen. I'll come. But I leave when I want, always. That single word did something dangerous to her resolve. When Maya arrived that evening, the driveway was empty. No security cars. No movement behind tinted windows, just a single light on inside the house. Marco opened the door himself. He wasn't wearing a suit. That alone startled her. Dark jeans, a simple shirt, sleeves rolled up, no watch, no sharp edges to hide behind. He looked like a man waiting for someone he wanted to impress, not intimidate. Hi. His voice was softer than usual. Hi. Neither of them moved for a moment. Then he stepped aside. Come in. Maya crossed the threshold slowly, half expecting the old tension to rush back. It didn't. The house felt different, still elegant, still controlled, but quieter, warmer. She noticed the smell first. Food, citrus, something clean and real. Not cologne, not perfume. You cooked. I had help. That sounds more believable. He let out a low laugh. I didn't want to risk poisoning you on our first night alone. Very thoughtful. They moved through the house together, side by side, no one leading, no one following. Maya noticed things she'd never seen before. Photographs, not many, but enough. A younger Marco with an older man, family, she assumed. A woman with kind eyes, a moment frozen in time, before responsibility had hardened him. You never had these out. I didn't think they mattered. I was wrong. That word again. Wrong. She wondered how many times he'd practiced saying it before it came so easily. Dinner was simple and intimate. They didn't sit at the formal table. They sat at the kitchen island, close enough that their knees brushed when they shifted. The food was good, better than she expected. Don't look so surprised. I'm reassessing everything I thought I knew. That earned a small smile. They talked easily, her work, his day, things that didn't carry weight. Laughter came more naturally now. So did silence, comfortable silence. At one point, Maya reached for her glass at the same time Marco did. Their fingers touched. Neither of them pulled away immediately. Maya's breath caught. Marco watched her face carefully. You okay? Yes. Only then did he slowly withdraw his hand. You didn't have to stop. I wanted to. Choice matters. Her chest tightened. It mattered that he understood that now. After dinner, they moved to the living room. The lights were low, the couch inviting. Maya curled her legs beneath her without thinking, choosing comfort instead of distance. Marco sat across from her, relaxed but attentive. There was something he needed to say. She could feel it. I should tell you something. Okay, I don't want you to think I changed overnight. I didn't, I know, but I did realize something. And once I saw it, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Maya waited. When you left, the house didn't just feel empty. My life did. She frowned slightly. You were the only person who ever looked at me like I was just a man. Not power, not threat, not advantage. Her breath caught. You saw me when I wasn't performing. And I didn't understand how rare that was. Emotion pressed against her ribs. I didn't want to see you that way. It hurt too much, I know. You let me fall in love with you alone. Marco didn't deny it. I didn't know. And by the time I understood, I didn't know how to fix it. That doesn't make it hurt less. I know. He shifted closer, not touching, just closing the distance enough that she felt his presence. More clearly, why didn't you want anything serious with anyone? Marco leaned back, eyes fixed on a point in the distance. Because serious means loss. Eventually, that's not fair. It was real for me. I grew up watching love become leverage. People I cared about disappeared. Some left, some were taken. I learned that attachment creates weakness. Maya's heart ached. So you avoided it. Yes. And women. They were safe, temporary, no expectations beyond the moment. And I wasn't. No, you weren't. I just didn't know how to choose without losing control. Maya looked at him fully. You don't get to protect me from your fear. You protect me by trusting me with it. That's what I'm trying to do now. If you'll let me, she reached out slowly, placed her hand on his forearm. He froze, letting her set the pace. I'm scared. So am I. Yes, because this matters. You're not very comforting. I'm honest. She laughed quietly. Emotion thick in her voice, they stayed like that for a long moment, connected, breathing in sync, letting the closeness speak. Eventually, Marco moved closer, slowly, giving her time to stop him. She didn't. His hand settled at her waist. Warm, steady, careful, Maya leaned into him, resting her forehead against his chest. This is dangerous. It should be. It's real. She closed her eyes, letting herself feel it. When she lifted her head, she cupped his face gently. The kiss was slow, intentional. Unhurried, no urgency, no possession, just choice. When they parted, Marco rested his forehead against hers. If you tell me to stop, I will. Not tonight, but not further either. He nodded immediately. I can wait. That's new. I'm learning. They returned to the couch. Fingers intertwined now, the last barrier gone. Maya rested her head on his shoulder, listening to his heartbeat. I don't regret leaving. I wouldn't want you to. It taught me something. What? That losing you once nearly broke me. Losing you again would destroy me. Her chest tightened. She closed her eyes, warmth spreading through her. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, something steady was forming. Not a promise, not a fantasy, a choice. And for the first time, neither of them felt like they were guessing. They were building something together. Maya woke up slowly, the way someone wakes when they feel safe. For a moment, she didn't open her eyes. She just listened, sensed. The room was quiet, soft morning light. The sheets were warm. The air felt calm, then she felt it. An arm wrapped around her waist, firm but relaxed. A steady chest behind her back. A slow, even breath against her shoulder. Marco. The realization didn't spark panic. It made her smile. She shifted slightly, careful not to wake him. But he stirred immediately, instinct sharp even in sleep. His arm tightened, just a fraction, not to hold her, just to keep her close, mourning. His voice low and rough. Morning. She turned in his arms, facing him now. His eyes were already open, looking at her like she was the only thing that mattered in the room. You okay? Yes, I really am. That answer seemed to settle something inside him. They stayed there a while. Not rushing, no alarms, no schedules, no obligations pressing in. For the first time in a long time, neither of them had anywhere else to be. Later, in the kitchen, Maya watched Marco move around with surprising ease. Not efficient the way staff had been. Not precise the way he was in business, just relaxed. He handed her a mug of coffee, paused, watching her take the first sip. Well, she smiled, perfect temperature. His lips curved, I remembered. Of course you did. They stood there, leaning against the counter, talking about nothing and everything. About her work, about a trip she wanted to take someday. About a place he'd always meant to visit, but never had. You could go now, you know, without chaos. I already am. That made her heart squeeze. That afternoon, Marco asked her to come somewhere with him. Not a meeting, not an obligation, just somewhere. They drove without much talking. Comfortable silence filling the car. Maya noticed he wasn't tense, hands easy on the wheel, posture open. When they stopped, she recognized the place immediately. The restaurant. Maya's breath caught. I know, we don't have to go in. She studied the entrance, the memory of that first night flashing through her mind. The chair, the words, the shock. Then she exhaled, no, let's go. Inside, no one froze this time. No silence, no held breath. They were just another couple walking in together. They were seated near the window. Same general area as before. You realize this place will always remember you. Good. They ordered. Talked, smiled. At one point, a server glanced at them. Recognition flickering briefly, then smiled politely and walked away. You're famous, infamous technically. I prefer reformed. Me too. Halfway through dinner, Marco reached across the table and took her hand. Openly, no hesitation, no checking the room, just choice. Maya squeezed his fingers. You're not hiding. I don't want to. She believed him. After dessert, Maya noticed something. The chair, the same one. She smiled to herself, stood up, and pulled it closer to him, deliberately, before sitting back down. Marco watched her with a look she had never seen before. Something like awe, this feels different. It is, that night I acted out of fear, this time I'm acting out of certainty. She leaned in and kissed him gently, right there in the restaurant. No drama, no spectacle, just real. The changes in Marco's world didn't come with announcements. They came with consistency. He stopped bringing people around just to fill space. He left events early. He said no more often than yes. When asked why, his answer was simple. I have someone waiting for me. Maya heard about that later and shook her head, smiling. You're impossible. I'm committed. She liked that better. Weeks turned into months. Their relationship grew in quiet ways. Shared mornings, late-night conversations, comfortable routines that felt earned, not assumed. Maya moved in slowly. Piece by piece, a drawer, a shelf, a corner that became hers. Marco never rushed her. One night as they cooked together, Marco stood behind her, arms loosely around her waist. You know, I used to think choosing meant losing control. She turned in his arms. And now I know choosing is the only way to keep what matters. She kissed him then, long and certain. A year later, the restaurant looked exactly the same lighting, same atmosphere, but everything else was different. Maya sat across from Marco, their fingers intertwined on the table. Do you ever think about that night? All the time. You were dramatic. I panicked. You said, she's mine. He nodded slowly. I was wrong. Oh, you were never mine. You chose me. Her smile softened. This time, she pulled the chair closer. The world didn't stop. It simply adjusted. She had once walked away to save herself. Now she stayed. Not because she was claimed, but because she was chosen. Every single day.